Good evening, everybody, and this is Kage with Badly Painted Minis. Today we are going to take a look at a first impressions video for the Elder Scrolls Call to Arms. So I'm going to be a bit of an unboxing. I've opened some of it already and assembled a couple of the miniatures just so we can kind of take a look and do a detailed look. But yeah, so I've been looking forward to this one for a while. I'm a big fan of these series. So we'll just start by unboxing a few of these guys and taking a look at them as we go. So I've got the complete set, the full range as is available right now, including the Dragonborn Triumphant pre-order hero, which we will take a look at. This is the Bleak Falls Barrow Delve set. So I'll talk a little bit about the quality of the miniatures and stuff as we go, but let's just open some up so you can take a look. So these are their instructions. They're pretty simple. The figures, as far as I've seen, are more or less, maybe 10 parts a miniature, maybe less. So although the instructions really aren't much more detailed than your typical Warlord Games instructions on the side sort of thing, just blown up bigger, it's usually good enough. Here's a pretty typical sprue. And most of them are about this size. This one's maybe a little bigger than the other ones, because I think most of the packs come with 5 figures and this one comes with 7. So that's the Draugr characters. I'll get into a little more detail about the specific sprues and my thoughts on them once I take a look at, I'll show you some of the ones that are put together, but I'll just go through a few of these things unboxing. Here we have, and pardon my camera quality, by the way, I'm using my cell phone, but with COVID and stuff, the guys have the good camera and I don't have access to it. This is the Ethereal Dragonborn. I'm not really going to open him up. Not a whole lot to show. He's a clear blue plastic. Scenic base. He's the bonus that you get for ordering everything together as a pack. So he's kind of nice. I'll pull out the one I've already opened here. So I've already put together the characters. I'll show you the bases. The bases are kind of interesting. They're your fairly typical base, except they're atypical size, and this is a big negative for me. I think that you should stick to established. They're 30 millimeters instead of 32. Now, I don't know if there's going to be a big competitive play scene for this, because this is more of a casual kind of game. And speaking of which, I'm not going to really review the game mechanics today. But anyway, it's really annoying to have bases that are a different size than kind of industry standard, because there's so much third-party support. They're a little thinner than normal. You can't really see this on the camera, but they are just enough to kind of fit your standard 3 millimeter by 1.5 millimeter or whatever magnet. I did check Mophidius branding on the bottom if you can see it. But yeah, I really don't understand why you wouldn't just use 32 mil bases so that we could take advantage of all the third-party support there is for that sort of thing. But they're fine bases. I haven't attached these guys to them yet because I'm going to make mine a little more scenic. But let's just make sure this will focus. Look a little closer. So these are the miniatures. Here's I put together the storm cloaks. The first thing you'll notice is some of these poses are a little outlandish. There's a few, they're holding things in kind of ways that really don't make a lot of sense to me either. And I'm also, for those who don't know, I'm a professional martial arts instructor, and I've done historical reenactment stuff as well. And some of these guys are just standing kind of weird. It looks more like they're swinging baseball bats in a lot of cases. But they're overall pretty good miniatures. Just to show some detail here, I opted for the plastic kit. I will not brook resin in my presence unless necessary. I know there might be some minor loss of detail, but I can't stand it, and I want to bring my friend Tamiya extra thin to the party, and if they're not plastic, then he doesn't put in any work. He just gets everyone in the room good and high, and that's not what we're here for. Always use that in a well-ventilated area. But anyway, one thing I wanted to bring note of is there's some fairly visible, this was done with Tamiya extra thin plastic cement, and you can still see some visible lines here where the mold splits. So if you were really particular about this, you'd need some putty work, but if you were super particular, you probably would have got the resin and needed a lot more cleanup anyway. This just had some very minor mold lines straight out of the box. Nothing terrible, nothing great. Here's Ralph. Roloff, can't pronounce his name. Fairly easy to put together. Decent detail. You'll still be able to pick up features in the face once they're painted. and good looking. And they've put the lines on sensible spots here. So I apologize. One of my cats has wandered into the room, so we'll have to put up with her talking for a moment. I thought I shut the door. Anyway, so they're in fairly sensible spots. You know, so they're not too noticeable. But if you're particular about that, there would be some putty work involved here. And I imagine there still would be in the resin versions as well. But again, they're in spots that aren't such a big deal, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. So here's one of these kind of outlandish poses I was talking about. Like, he's doing this kind of twisty pointing thing, but like he's holding his axe just like as if he was dragging it along the ground or something. And I don't remember that from either the game or, you know, any kind of real martial arts. Like, you know, maybe you're trying to uppercut someone with an axe or something while pointing behind you, but that's just a really odd way to carry it. Like, you'd carry it forwards. It kind of annoyed me that some of the poses are a little weird, but they're all action poses at least. Now, this is not like a big squadron-based game. It's a squadron-based game. It's not like a battalion-based game, so you're not going to have a whole lot of duplicate units most likely. So the fact that, you know, one of them has an odd pose or two of them have an odd pose is not going to be a big deal. It's not as bad as having to have 20 guys with odd poses. And the last one here, real quick, he's got maybe more of a actual holding the weapon high stance as opposed to some of these guys here holding it like, you know, he looks like he's stepping up to the plate. Should also note that some of these would probably be painted better in sub-assemblies. I brook no sub-assemblies either. I don't have time to pin up little parts and paint them for most of my guys. Maybe for the odd character, that's going to see a lot of play. But anyway, so those are basically an idea of what the figures look like. I'll give you one that I painted. This is the pre-order figure. This is the Dragonborn Triumphant pre-order figure to give an idea, kind of detail that one looks like. So he painted up pretty good. You know, I don't think he's amazing. There's a few spots where there's a bit of a lack of detail, but as you can see, I was able to fairly easily pick out his muscles. You know, it's obvious what he's wearing. He's in his iconic kind of gear from the series there. I don't know if you can really see. His face didn't keep a lot of detail, even though I used an airbrush and very thin coats. So there's that. But overall, he turned out pretty good. And then I stuck a magnet in the bottom. I had to Forstner bit drill that hole in, but we got one in there. One thing I don't know if you can see is dagger, very square. And I've noticed that a few things on some of the swords in this. Again, not a big deal. If I were so inclined, I could take a little bit of time to finish this, but I have, you know, as probably many of you do, 300 or 400 unpainted miniatures kicking around from various board games in my collection. Sorry, cat. And anyway, so that's what that's like. But he's overall pretty good. Maybe not up to Games Workshop level of sculpting in terms of plastic sculpts. They're not the best, but they're kind of the industry standard. So to compare it, I'd say it's slightly below. This one was resin, but slightly below, I'd say, that level overall. But he turned out pretty good. I'm happy with him from 3 feet away. You know, he looks perfectly fine to play on the battlefield, so he'll be good. So let's continue with the unboxing. Take a look at some of this stuff here. We have, I opened this package earlier, by the way, so it's not a true unboxing for some of it will be. So this is the door. I was actually pretty impressed with this. You know, it really evokes the feel of the game. I don't know if it's turning up too well on my phone camera or not, but you can even really see the texturing on the stone, so there'll be very little work to make this look like old stone. You know, easily enough dry brushing and some washes will quickly make this look ancient. This is the puzzle door, and this is part of the Bleak Falls Barrow Delve terrain. I ordered an extra set of walls just because I wanted an extra set of walls. So we might take a look at that after. Here is the Imperials. Pardon the light glare there. Let's take a quick look at that. So there's kind of, looks like kind of their standard sprue. Pardon me shaking the camera there. This is kind of my standard sprue. Don't worry, I'll let you out in a second there, cat. Here's kind of a standard sprue. Give you an idea of what that's like. I'm really sorry about that. I don't want to have to redo this whole video, but I'm probably going to have to. So there's your 5 or so guys that comes on a standard sprue. The Imperial faction. And I will add, one thing I've noticed about their plastic sprues is there's a lot of extra plastic on them. I don't know if that's part of their process or anything else. But their sprues tend to, it looks like they got a lot of waste plastic compared to normal spruce, which is full. So here's another of the Bleak Fall Barrows terrain. So there's some of the walls. Again, very nice. These are all resin. And just to the touch too, from this fresh open box, I'm not feeling a lot of mold release, which is nice. So I'll just pull a couple of those out. Let me see if I've got one that's got, here's one that's got some of the berths for the Draugr. And here's a couple, some pillars, of which you'll need many if you're going to do the underground delves. I purchased this myself mainly for the delve mode and the co-op mode. I play enough skirmish games that I don't need another one, though of course I will give it a try to see what it's like. But there's some of that stuff. This next one here is the Nord Tomb Arches. Pull a few pieces of these out. So they've got some big gates, and I should note they're fairly sensible at where they put their gates that I've seen for these sort of things. But a few on the figures have been stuck on the muscles, so it'll make them kind of annoying to clean up and really detail those. I like to do detailed muscles. But for this one here, I can't show how it fits because I just opened it, so I haven't cut the gate off. But you can see that these fit into the base for standing up. So we've got several of the various arches, which when put together will form the kind of iconic entrance to those tombs that you'll see from Skyrim. Again, not a whole lot to talk about, pretty bog standard, but nice resin terrain.